what we've seen from WeTransfer is a great example of, even in now, with all this economic uncertainty we talked about, where we talked about the cost optimizations of licensing, the sprawl is going to continue. And it is going to continue at a pace that isn't like, it might be slowed down, but it's not at a pace that you're going to be allowed to catch up. And I think that finding ways to utilize the employees as effectively as you possibly can. I think the second metric that they talk about here, which is so hard to quantify, which is the trust and the confidence in data across a wide variety of different systems, right? I mean, I think we can probably all attest to a meeting we've been into with leadership where numbers are presented and there's a pause, and it's not just them consuming, it's them kind of weighing how much they trust what you've just told them. And you can imagine the amount of time that we spend and probably the amount of time we waste with a lack of trust in the data. So if you think about how you tame the sprawl, it's not only just making sure that you have compliance and governance, it's the trust to actually start moving forward. I think if we look at from a workforce perspective, I mean, we've kind of talked about what Titan Brands was able to do, and Jeffrey really.
But first, I just wanted to point out, crazy number that we don't have up here is this is a company of 400 employees had 200 SaaS applications.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, right? I mean, you think about just the amount of sprawl that they're dealing with, and then to be able to feel confident with those systems, it's amazing work. When you and I think this also starts with driving an initiative, driving a focus on data and analytics as a strategy. Right. So then, second piece we've kind of talked about is utilizing that digital workforce, right? Is like, we have got to find ways to get those economies of scale out of our employees, because there will be no way, especially with the SaaS sprawl we just talked about with WeTransfer. If I have one or two dedicated people, they can't, the best they could probably do would be 20, 30 applications a year if we're lucky. And that's even though we talked about like an inch deep. So we've got to find more ways of doing this. And this is what Titan Brands has been able to do, which is they took that mindset and they found ways of expanding who is solving the problem while also maintaining control and governance through the platform. So when Jeffrey talks about being able to use business users to be able to automate different tasks without having a lot of IT experience, this is something that's completely different. And I think, Jeremy, you've mentioned this is some of the stuff you're having to work on and are dealing with the similar things, right?
Yeah, correct. I mean, we have a very small IT staff by comparison to pretty much any company. There's only like two of us. So, and we're managing quite a bit, both on the hardware and the software side, between the two of us. But it goes back to enabling the business users as well, and getting the information to them, but there are so many solutions that help us stand up integrations pretty quick, and a part of that is just taking the time to flesh that out ahead of time, and then just go tackle it. And
it's great when we have the speaker is one of our slides, with Modus in terms of what you're able to accomplish. I mean, I don't need to read your slide. I think with you here, like, help us walk through. I mean, some of the great stories we have here, as you kind of talked about, is being able to quickly scale and expand operations to the 15 brands. I mean, that is a lot of work. And especially as you mentioned, from two people, like utilizing technology, working with people in process, like, what are some of the guidances you would kind of provide to the audience, especially when it comes to demonstrating the business value?
Probably the biggest one is, for us anyways, is the data cleanse to begin with. Garbage in, garbage out is one punny way to look at it, but it's so true, and it tends to break things. And if you can look for processes that kind of funnel things into a certain methodology, that I think that helps a lot. It's like using a list in NetSuite instead of free text. Looking at things that way and say, here are your available options, choose one. And I mean,
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, because you're talking about the technology side, but you also, as you guys were working this, like you as we were talking before, you've kind of freed up some staff to kind of work on more critical things. And back to that saving the trees. I mean, I bet there was a lot of manual process that you were doing before that now can be spent elsewhere.
correct, right. And, you know, by getting the staff involved that way too, like you said before, you establish that relationship with them and with leadership, and you kind of become a indirect expert on their job and what they need to be able to do. So over time, you know, you build each of those blocks of the pyramids. That's how the Egyptians did it, right? So over time, it becomes a lot easier that way. You're like, if a certain person is coming to me, you know why. You have what's going on in their realm, and just at the forefront right there. Like, I know what you do, so I can help, you know, and just work through that process with them.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and I think to your point, in terms of the growth of the customer base, I mean, as you look at how your integration platform helped, I mean, what were some of the key pieces, you know, both from a process, but, you know, in terms of Celigo, some of the things that really helped? I mean, we've had conversations around error management, the ease of use of the UI. What were some of the things that really helped you there?
Lately, the biggest one has been being able to clone flows, because all the settings are there and we just have to make a few tweaks. And the branching capability is huge for us, where we could take one input and send it to multiple, you know, outputs, filter it off that way. Those are the cloning has that's improved our stand-up time, more time to be able to work on other problems, basically, and yeah.
Yeah, because you found a set of repeatable patterns that then you were able to like through the platform, and we have some stuff. If the audience is interested in around, you know, how we group settings, and which Jeremy kind of mentioned, we can follow on with this. But, you know, essentially, you can build these integrations and then make them consumable, where the business logic becomes a series of settings. And to your point, you know, when we look at kind of the scaling across the brands, you essentially found repeatable processes that you could expand across those brands and utilize those people, correct?
Common denominators, yeah, and ways to tag data so that we know if we pick up that tag, what we can do with it. And so that all that filtering really helps, just to be able to organize it as best as we can. So clean data in, and it's well organized, and we can get it anywhere. So it's a big win all around. And sometimes it puts a little bit more pressure on IT, you know, oh, this should be easy for you, you know, but that I would add then that the big thing there is open communication, and just, this is what's going on, this is the challenge we're running into, or even if it's gets a little bit technical, it's not that big of a deal, because you can explain it and help people understand what's going on.